Dan, before we talk about the cap. Can
you take it off?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's better. Rules of journalism. Before we talk,
I got like a weird sunburn line.
No, but it's
can't see it.
No.
Okay. Good.
I can't see it.
Okay, great.
Before we talk about Czech Republic, the title and everything, I want to know more about you. The beginning. When you begin to love football, it was since always, but when you begin to work with it.
You know, I actually coached I was the head coach of my first team when I was 17 years old. I was playing high school football and I broke my ankle, and I missed my senior year, and I had an opportunity to kind of coach a team of 11 and 12-year-olds, and that kind of pulled me out of depression. And it was, I mean, it was fun. We went undefeated, won the championship, and I'm coaching against all these like kids' dads and stuff like that, and they all hated me. But that was kind of when I figured out that I loved to coach, and then I went and I played a little bit of college football, and then I started playing in Europe. And when you play in Europe, you're kind of a coach too, if you're an American. And
but where are you from? Your hometown?
Alexandria, Louisiana.
Okay. Yeah. And then how did you go to Europe from this?
So I mean, I had kind of a similar experience in college where injuries were kind of keeping me off the field, and I decided, shit, I'm going to study abroad or do something different. And then once I was abroad, I found out about a football team there. I was like, oh, well, this would be pretty cool. And I went out there, and played football in Ireland for really about three seasons. It was just fun. It was just, you know, it didn't feel like a job. It felt like something that I always looked forward to doing, and I made some lifelong friends there. And we were young and stupid at the time, but it was my first experience of taking a team that hadn't won a game in 2 years and kind of building into a championship team.
And how old were you?
I was 20, from the time I was 21 until I was 23.
It's the time to be stupid.
Exactly. It was the perfect time. You know, it's so weird because it just became 10 years since we won the championship there, and it's still one of my favorite memories. So that was kind of when it started, and then that got me kind of involved in football in Europe, and then I got my first head coaching job in 2011 with the Kristiansand Gladiators in Norway, and I was 27 at the time.
And before it was in which country?
I was in Ireland, and then I was playing football in Poland.
Okay, Ireland, Poland, and then Norway.
Yeah. I moved back to the States, and I was out of football because I thought I had to get a real job. And I worked in something besides football for about 2 years, and then I was getting my master's in creative writing too. So I was doing that, and then
KC has a master's of creative writing as well.
Casey Frost?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
We've talked a few times, and that never came up. That's really cool. You can't really get a lot of jobs with it, but it's cool to have.
No, you come to Brazil when you do this.
Yeah. Exactly, it was perfect. So I was in Norway. It was really my first head coaching experience. I was really kind of in the deep end, but it was a similar situation to here. I went to the team. They were in the second division. We played that. Then the next year we were promoted, and we made it all the way into the championship game that year, but we lost. But it kind of put my name on the map out there in terms of international football. And as you know, right after that was the LFA, and then the True Toys, and then I was back coaching.
But who invited you to come to Brazil?
Casey, actually.
Casey?
Yeah, Casey did. I forgot how we came in contact, but after Norway, I was kind of burned out on football because we had worked so hard to get to that championship game and lost, and I hadn't learned how to handle it yet. So I moved back, and I moved to Austin, Texas, and I was doing like private coaching for high school kids who were trying to go play in college, and I got in contact with Casey, and he's like, and I was dating a girl from Brazil at the time that I met there. So we were going to visit, and I think that's how my name got out there. I was in Brazil for like 10 days, and like I spoke with Brown Spiders at that time, and then when I got back to the States, I got in contact with Casey, and he told me, hey, we're starting a professional league here. We'd really like for you to be a part of it. I was like, that sounds awesome. And then I got here and it was different. But,
but then after LFA, you were contacted by Three Toys.
Three Toys, yeah. I accepted an offer from the Brown Spiders first. I had an apartment in Curitiba, and I loved Curitiba, and I planned on staying there. But just like things weren't really working out, so I said, guys, this is not what we agreed on. And we both agreed to, stop. And that's when the Three Toys were like, hey, we'd love to get you here. And I went there. So that was where I met Álvaro and really moved him and said, hey, you're going to play quarterback now. And that was really where I always talk about him. The guys all joke about it, how close he and I are. But that was really where we first started to work on teaching him how to play QB out on the beach, like just going through, him just devoting a lot of time to it. And I told him, I said, you can be on the Salão as a quarterback. You can be one of the best in Brazil. We just got to work at it.
And tomorrow it will happen.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
3 years later, yep.
Yeah. And I would let this question for Cruzeiro part, but as you mentioned, Álvaro, you said at least 3 times that I recall that he's the best athlete that you coach.
Yeah.
And why? Why you say this with all this confidence?
So he's, I'll say 100%, he's my favorite player I've ever coached. Are there certain guys who are more athletic at different positions than him? Yeah, that I've coached. Yeah, he's a pleasure to coach because as a coach, you want to coach coachable players. And guys who really, and it's one of the cool things about being here at the Salão, it's a lot of coachable guys, like guys who want to get better, guys who are, I think everybody talks about, oh, he made the Salão because he's big or he's fast. No, it's the guys who dedicate themselves and treat the sport as their craft, whether they're paid or not. And Álvaro is one of those guys who's been a professional at this since I met him. It was long before he ever got a contract to play football. He treated this as his profession, and he's really intelligent, and his retention is amazing. Stuff that I taught him in 2014, he's never forgotten. You explain something to him, and it's amazing because he's 30 years old now, and usually that's stuff you have with 15 and 16-year-olds. They retain, they're like a sponge, they learn fast, but that's him. And
they're not stubborn.
Exactly. And if I tell him, hey, we got to change your footwork and you got to do this, and it's not comfortable for him, he'll do it until he gets it right. He's not like, oh, coach, this is really tough, it's not comfortable. No, he's like, okay, and he'll do it. No, let's do it again. No, let's do it again. No, let's do it again. Like he wants to do it right. He's just so focused, and he's whenever I give coaching clinics, and this is going to sound really, like I'm a little bit, like I like him a little too much, but I always bring up Álvaro, whether I'm doing them in Europe or in the States, because when I talk about quarterbacks, it's like, what's the number one thing that you look for in a quarterback? And people say arm strength, good feet, stuff like that. I'm like, no, it's toughness. And Álvaro is the toughest son of a bitch I've ever had play quarterback. He'll have a bloody nose and a broken hand, and he'll still play. And he plays.
In the final, he has.
Yeah, his face was all mangled up. I was like, "What did you run into? Did you get hit by a truck?" But yeah, I mean, and he plays his best games in his biggest games. When it's a big game, he's not intimidated. He doesn't get nervous. He plays his best games. It's just 2 years in a row where he's played in a final, got in the MVP, and scored 4 touchdowns and had 0. Interceptions.
Yeah, I asked him exactly after the final this Sunday. Mm-hmm. It was almost mirror for him.
Yeah.
It was the 2 finals, and this one is the toughest as you can get here.
Yeah, and he just plays his biggest games. He's a competitor. I mean, even if you look at the Curitiba game, like, we don't win that game at the end without him making some really critical throws that were in the perfect spots. That quarterback sneak he pretty much did on his own, broke 3 tackles. He's just a pleasure to coach, man. And honestly, the reason when it was actually Brian, when I first came to the Eagles. I was talking to, so last year, I was talking to Brian, and Brian said, man, why did you leave Europe to come coach Liga Nacional? And I was like, man, honestly, Álvaro. I wanted to work with him some more.
So if at that time it was not Sada Cruzeiro,
yeah,
it was Get Eagles. If Get Eagles did not hire Álvaro, you wouldn't be here.
No, I don't think so. And it was funny because I talked about Álvaro so much to Clayton, and then Clayton was the coach for the Copa America game, and they wanted to bring some guys, so he brought Álvaro, and then the team loved Álvaro, and the team signed Álvaro, and then Álvaro talked to me, and I was like, well, shit, I'd love to work with him again. So that was, if they wouldn't have had him signed, I probably wouldn't have come back.
Wow. You made the question and the answer. It was on my mental list, this. And then when it became Sada Cruzeiro, the same project that they have in volleyball, it's 3 times champions of the world. Then you said, oh, okay, I will stay here for sure. Yeah. I mean, it was really, for me, I was thinking of it like, because I came late. They had already played 1 or 2 games that year. And I told them, I said, hey, I've got camps over here in Europe. I can't come right now. And they said, okay, we'll wait. So I came, and it was, I mean, aside from like Álvaro, Rafa Cruz, and Álvaro's brother, Rafinha, it was all rookies. And I was just like, oh man, this is low level. And we got a lot of work to do. But the guys bought in, and they were committed. So I initially was thinking of it as like, I'm going to go, it's going to be more of like a consultant head coach thing. I'm going to help them get up and going and get them going in the right direction. And then after 3 months, I'm going to go back to Europe. And I got an offer from Prague, actually, last year at the same time. And so I went to meet with Directoria, and I told them, I said, hey guys, look, it's been great. I'm going to try and finish this out, because I think it was right after the semifinals. And we're going to try and win this thing. I said, and then next year I think I'm going back to Europe. And they're like, Coach, I want you to hear what our plans are. So they told me, and I was like, and then in Prague was always my dream job. And I went back to them. After I told them I was a 90% yes, I just want to talk to the team, I went back and I told them, hey guys, I can't come, I got to stay here. And that's kind of how that happened. And I stayed this 1 year to kind of see it through. So when you arrived here last year, it was not something that you could envision that, I will be champions of the first division. No. I really didn't think that. When I first got there and saw the team, I was like, man, I don't even know if we can be champions of the Liga Nacional. I was like, God, these guys, it's a mess. I mean, not a mess as in it, like, it was just a team. I'm actually lucky that Clayton had done those camps with them for the Copa America and kind of laid a foundation. But I mean, it was, the football IQ was, on the floor, and we had to get it up, and we had to work. And my only coaches at the time were guys who had less experience than the players, and so I mean, it was really, I really give Tavos a lot of credit, because he's grown and learned so much in such a short time. But I had to do practice plans for everybody, scripted drills for everybody, teach those guys how to run the drills, practice plan for offense, defense, special teams, game plan for offense, defense, special teams, install all of my stuff. So it was a huge challenge. It was the first time since I was coaching college football that I was putting in college football hours, because it was 14 hours a day just to get everything done. So. But if you think it was better that it started at second division because of
absolutely
the level, and then build this foundation for EFA this year. Absolutely think it is, and I think that the next head coach who comes in is going to have a solid, foundation to work from. There's a reason that this team is undefeated for the last 2 seasons, and it's not just because we contracted a bunch of players. There's a culture there now, and there's some young talent there now. Guys who are going to be, I think they're going to be on the sell song as soon as the training camps start happening, and the only reason they aren't there now is just because they don't have enough film yet. Sada
Cruzeiro, yeah, absolutely. Those 2 guys, I mean, I think
Moreno could be under 19.
Yeah, absolutely. And our middle linebacker Quixada, I think he's got a future here. I think he's going to make some noise in camps. And I mean, these are guys. They aren't contracted players, but they're guys who the whole team commits just the same as those guys, and that's the culture that's been created there. And I think that it's going to carry on as they move forward.
So when you stay this year, then you envision, no, our goal is the title?
Yes.
Or,
yes.
Since the beginning?
Since the beginning, and I knew it was going to be tough because as long as, like I told you, when I was in Norway, we went to the title the first year that we got promoted, and that was the only time that I ever knew of, or that I've ever heard of, that a team in international football has gone from the second division to the top division and even made it to the title that year, because there's a learning curve. It's really tough to make that jump in competition. Most of the time you have a season like Sanofi had, or like a team like that had. That's more of the norm. So, but I knew it was going to be a huge challenge, but that was the goal. Because if we were going to invest this much in football, and I'd make sure that we brought in the right guys with the right character first of all, and no, we're not going to do it. We're not going to invest this much, and not just talking about the money that the team paid, but of the time that I required of the guys, of the time that me and the staff put in, of all that. If we're going to invest this much, we're going for it all. So that was absolutely our goal from the beginning.
And it's done now.
Yeah, it is.
And now you said that. No, before the dream job, you said Prague was your dream job. There were some time in the season that it had some difficulties outside the field. What if you can talk? What exactly you guys have to pass through to reach the final as a group, as a culture that you said?
I think it's something that you've asked about before. At the beginning, there was a little bit of a division in terms of contracted players and non-contracted players, and non-contracted players feeling, well, this isn't really fair, and most of these guys being so new to football and not knowing anything differently than even the BH Eagles, who were pretty well organized and had a lot of stuff taken care of for them. It's like guys not having to pay for their own uniforms, or not having to, or having a physio, things that aren't exactly common in Brazil right now. They took for granted.
Yeah. When we started, I saw Rafa Cruz since the beginning at Corinthians. I played with him, and we don't have pads. We don't have much of the things there.
Yeah.
And Corinthians was one of the top teams.
Yeah.
And I know what you
So there were a lot of guys who this was the only team they had played for. They took those things for granted, and they see these guys getting paid, not knowing that, hey, Álvaro used to pay to play when he didn't have the money to pay for it. You know, these guys have, Malta went to the States, and I'm sure probably on a lot of his own money to play football. And these guys paid their dues, and they've committed and dedicated and sacrificed for the game already. They're being paid because they've arrived. They're not being paid to arrive.
Yeah.
And we had to.
In Português, we say eles ralaram muito.
Sim, exatamente. We had to. I had to really be vigilant about it, and we had to suspend some people. We had to kick some people off the team who were being malcontents, and it was like, hey guys, this is going to be our team. If you don't like it, you got to find a different team. There's other teams in Minas who you can go to who this isn't their model. This isn't what they're trying to do. This is us. This is what we're going to do. It's not going to change. So that was one of the first ones, and then part of why, because you asked if I didn't, why not why, but you kind of clarified that I didn't see this as a long-term thing when I first got here, and a lot of it is just like personal reasons. Compared to Europe, Brazil's just not there yet organizationally. So even though Sada Cruzeiro might be one of the best structured teams in Brazil, it's still in a somewhat Brazilian model. So for me, there's a lot of frustrations, and the directors are learning, they're improving. There's a long way to go, and so I mean there were little things. I mean, you saw we didn't have our pants for the semifinals, and that's just one of those things where it's like at the time you're just like, you can't believe this is happening. Like how did this happen? But it was really there were things like that happened all along, and it has to get better. And I believe it will be. There's a lot of things Sada Cruzeiro is doing right, and the attention to detail and the things like that are going to come along. I believe if he wants the job, I believe Coach Lex Braga is going to be the next head coach here, and he deserves it. I've kind of been mentoring him for the last 2 years, and when I convinced him to come here, there really was kind of that thought like, hey, eventually this is going to be yours, and he understands that need. He's been in Europe, he's been in the States, he understands how football is supposed to be done, and I think he's going to keep it going in that direction.
That's nice. It was another question that you already answered. And I think that makes sense because if you bring an American that doesn't know Brazil, as you had a lot of experience with Brazil with LFA and Tritões, I think it wouldn't work if you already knew how Brazil works.
It's tough because if you bring for example, a lot of coaches, American coaches who are hired to go coach in Europe or in Japan or somewhere like that, there are American coaches who coach college football or have coached college football, and they go there and they bring that culture home with them. And in Brazil, there's so much resistance right now. It's still in that stage, and I think that if the college coaches who I know, even if I brought them to Sada Cruzeiro right now, they would get extremely frustrated extremely fast.
And we were talking about Sada Cruzeiro.
Exactly. And even here, it would be a little bit too frustrating for them. And some of it is cultural and the jeitinho crap. And I'm just going to.
We're never going to read this.
Yeah, and then I mean, some of it is the way the league works right now. And like Coach Viel came here kind of late in the season because he was coaching in Sweden, and his first game was the Santos game.
Wow.
And he was just like, is this football? I can't believe that I'm here.
That is low even for us.
Exactly. And I explained that to him. Hey, not every game's going to be like this, man. This is like the worst I've ever seen. But there's always little things happening. There's always little frustrations, and it's going to take. One thing it's going to take is it's going to take investment in the league. I'll be frank, I disagree with the league expanding. I know they've gone to 32 teams now. I think they need to cut it down. I
agree with you.
Yeah, I think they need to cut it down. Have a BFA 1, BFA 2, cut it down to 12 to 15 teams, and get investment in for those teams to take care of these issues like bad fields, water, security, refs, everything. Take care of that, and that cuts down on a lot of the frustration. And I think eventually that's going to happen. But for a college coach, like we were saying, to come in and not know anything about football in Brazil, it's going to be shell shock. Lex knows what to expect. And he knows it, but at the same time, he is the type of guy who left Brazil because he couldn't deal with this stuff. And now he's back, so he knows how to deal with it, but he's not going to put up with it. So if there's stuff being done wrong, he's going to call it out. He's not going to do it like that. And at the same time, he's not going to completely shut down whenever something happens. So I think he's the perfect guy for the job.
I think too, because he's already here.
Yeah.
He's everything you just said.
Yeah.
And now, why Prague is your dream job?
The first thing is, when I moved to Europe way back when, I traveled to Prague and fell in love with the city. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's an amazing city, and the Prague Black Panthers are they're a championship team. I think they're now 4-time national home national champions. And I've been to the city 6 times. And it was actually while I was coaching in Poland, toward the end of my time there, when I knew that it probably wasn't going to work out. There was a team that was playing against Prague in Prague, and Warsaw's only about a 45-minute flight from Prague. And the team contacted me and was like, "Hey, we'd like to interview you and see if you'll be our coach next year." So the team that was playing against Prague, and they flew me down there, and I saw them play. And my former quarterback was playing for Prague, and just being in the city that weekend and seeing them play, I was like, man. And I actually bought this at the time. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. I've been wearing this for 2 years. Bought it at the game. Didn't talk to Prague at all. Talked to the other team. Didn't talk to Prague at all. And then just kind of left it at that. And then, but it was always kind of even when I was coaching college football. My agent at the time called me and said, "Hey, what would it take to get you back over in Europe?" I said, "The head coaching job at the Prague White Panthers." So it's always just been a team where I love the city, I love the team, I love the tradition there. And they made the offer last year, and for me to turn it down to stay with Sada Cruzeiro says a lot. Says a lot of how much this team here means to me. So when the offer came again this year, I knew it wasn't going to come a third time, and now they're playing in the top, for me, the top international league in Europe. Our first game is going to be against the best team in Europe. We're playing the Swarco Raiders, and that opportunity, that challenge is just what I've always wanted, and the life I can have there as well is something that I've always envisioned. And I want to come back to Brazil next year. If not, I don't think I can come here for enough time to be the head coach of the team. I can't come here for 5 or 6 months, but if I can come here when they get close to the playoffs as Lex's assistant coach, something like that, that's something I'm going to talk about the team with, or even back here just to visit the guys.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. They will love it. But I'd like to oh my God, I forgot to make this question for you.
Sure.
If Lex stays here, and I think that you cheer for him to be perfect and everything goes perfect, you'll never be the head coach here of Sada Cruzeiro. But would you come back to Brazil to go to another team?
That's a tough question. Right now, I don't think so. And that was one of the issues, because when I started to think, and I really started to think about it in June, about, okay, I got to figure out if I'm going to stay with this team another year or not. And of course, it depends on the offers that I get, and I just happen to get the one that I can pass up. But one of the things that always factored into my mind is this is international football. It's international football in Brazil. It could happen tomorrow that Sada says, "You know what? I don't want an American football team anymore." All of a sudden, we don't have the resources that we need, and this is my profession. So now all of a sudden, I'm in Brazil and I can't coach here anymore. I don't think there's another team I could go to that could give me this situation that would be acceptable. Maybe I don't know, maybe Chimbo, but they have Amadeo, and there's maybe a couple of other teams where I could see myself living there, but I've seen a couple of teams in Brazil, and I've seen the things that go on.
And then you're not talking about money for you, you're talking about infrastructure.
Yeah. I'm talking about infrastructure. I'm talking about structure. I'm talking about the things that you need to be satisfied at your job as a coach, and I mean being able to live on it too. It doesn't. I know that I'm not gonna. I took a pay cut to stay here, so the money's not the most important thing, but being able to live. I already had a situation with the True Toys in 2014 where I didn't get paid for 6 months, and toward the end, they eventually were able to recover that of money and give it to me, and I'll always be grateful for that. But it was really frustrating at the time. For the last 6 months of the season, it was just a mess. And that instability here, and knowing that if I lost my job here, I got to basically leave the continent potentially. In Europe, if I lose my job in Prague, I can take a train ride to Germany and get a job there, or to Italy. Everything's close. and there's a lot of teams over there that that are structured and you can go coach. Brazil's not there yet, and so that was probably one of the very big factors for me.
Brazil's not there yet, and it's the only place on this continent, the South America.
Oh yeah, I can't go coach in Chile, or I can't go coach in Argentina. I mean, it's not there yet, and I do think Brazil is where it's going to happen first, and it's starting to happen, and I'm excited that next year there's probably going to be 2 or 3 Sada Cruzeiros.
Hopefully. And beginning to go to the end of the interview, I don't know if I'm going to subtitles. I have to.
Sure.
but you said a lot of things outside the field. And since Tritões through 2017, I think the game inside the field grew a lot.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But in comparison to Czech Republic, Germany, or Poland, how do you compare?
The athletes here, I think, are world class. You don't have, and it's because Brazil's a big country and there's a lot of genetic diversity. You don't have megas a lot in Brazil. Like there's Anthony Double in France. Everybody knows about him, but there's not
nice guys.
Yeah, great guy. And there's not a lot of guys like Mega. There's not a lot of guys like Humphrey Cruz. I don't think I'll have a guy like them on my team pro. And I think these guys could go play over in Europe and succeed and dominate. And I'm going to try and help them get those opportunities. But I think that Brazil compared to Europe, the athletes are here, the coaching isn't, and that's the biggest difference. Football in Europe, in countries like Germany, Italy, it's been around for 30-something years. They had the NFL Europe over there. They understand the importance of coaching and investing in it. Me and Lonnie Hersey, I think, were the only import coaches this year, and I think that makes a huge statement. Teams bring players, hire players. A player's job is to dominate and to mentor guys. The coach's job is to make everybody on the team the best player he can be. And I think teams really need to start to recognize that, to take that next step, and for the sport to develop. And even if it's stuff like, you have Guzman's here, you have guys like Kevin, you have guys like Amadeo, BL, and that's great. If you think they're the coach, make them full-time. Make this their job. Because for me, I believed we were going to beat João Pessoa, because if I've got 3 weeks to prepare for you, you're not going to beat me. Because guess what? It's my job, and I am doing it all day. So you got me, Lex, and Leandro Vial preparing for you for 3 weeks. We're not going to lose.
Yeah, and different from Kevin, Mario, and the guys.
All these guys who have jobs.
Yeah.
So they got to go do their job until 5 p.m. and then try to watch film and stuff. And it's if they believe that that's their guy, make him full time. If you don't believe that you have that guy who's good enough to make full time, get a guy to come in and mentor him. Lex being able to coach in Europe and being mentored has done it. He said it himself. He's learned more about football in the last 2 years than he did in the previous 10. Because he was able to do it full time. He had a mentor.
He was at Poland.
He was in Poland with me, and then he went in and coached for a great coach friend of mine in Austria. So he had a great coach there, a guy who had worked with NFL coaches, a guy who coached Division I college football. Lex got to work with him. Now he came back here and he's with me. He's with Coach Vial, helping him learn more about defense. And nothing can replace that. Nothing can replace that. Brian going to Rudy Lab. He learned more in the last 2 years about football than he did in his entire time at João Pessoa. So this idea that you can just get a guy to manage a team and then hire import players, it's not going to help your team, not long term. And I think that for teams to get to football in Brazil really is in the same reality as Europe in that players, not every player is paid. It's not fully professional. But the difference is there's more investment in coaching and development there. And that's where the emphasis needs to be out. Teams start to say, hey, if you look at who wins the Brazil Bowls, it's teams with coaches. And if you want to get there, that's what you got to do. So I think that's the next one. To answer your last question before, because I think the question was, would I ever come back to Brazil? The answer is yes. And even if it's not as a head coach, I want to help football here develop. I had an hour and a half conversation with Bruno Guilherme on Wednesday about football in Brazil, how I can stay involved, how I can still help. They want me to stay involved and help. And I mean, when you invest this much time and you've got guys that you love here, I think that the Brazilian players are so obsessed with football and so committed. It's amazing. They put in more time than most other international players do. So I think I don't want to just not help if I can.
So, a curiosity, at Prague, everyone is paid, every player?
No. So
just the imports.
Just the imports, yeah. So it's the same reality as here now. I'm going to have 7 coaches on staff, which helps, and that's a difference than here. A lot of times, I feel like when teams first start, they think it's like soccer. Just have one coach and he can do everything. It's just not like that. But yeah, it's the same reality as here. Just the difference is they've been around longer and they've had coaches come in and develop them.
Now the last question.
Sure.
You love Álvaro.
I do.
Álvaro goes to Prague.
This is the hardest part about taking the job. So. We have the Czech national team quarterback on our team. He's basically like the Czech Álvaro. So I couldn't get that in there. I wanted to, and I don't believe, and I hope it's not my last time coaching Álvaro. I am talking to teams in Europe about him, talking to coaches who I know, trying to find him a good place. The hard part about getting Brazilian players over to Europe is really the flights. Because what it costs to fly a Brazilian player over, they can fly over an American player. That, and in some countries, Brazilians count as imports. But if you're talking about Portugal, Spain, Germany, they don't. So now they can go there and they don't count as imports. And you get a guy like Álvaro, and you save that spot. If you can only have four imports, well, now you don't have to bring a QB. You can bring a running back. You can bring somebody else. So it's an advantage then. So I'm going to do everything I can if it's what he wants to do. And the great thing is, with the seasons not being at the same time, he can go play in Europe and then come back to Cruzeiro. If he goes to Germany, he can't. But a lot of the other countries, he can go play over there. He can take what he learned, bring it back to Sada Cruzeiro. And I think that's everybody wins then.
I believe so. So I hope that this happens.
Me too.
Let's see.
Me too.
Let's see. Thank you, Dan, for your time. Thank you for this that you said, that I want to be involved. I want to be. It's the sign that you really is committed to the development of the game here, and we only have to thank you for that, for this year and all the years that you have been involved with us.
Thank you, man. Hey, I gotta thank everybody here. It's been, for whatever sacrifices it takes, it's been a tremendous pleasure and opportunity to coach this team this year. I know that the next team that I have is going to be difficult to live up to what we had here. So it's been a great time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. Appreciate it, brother.
Valeu mesmo, Dan. I said that it's too long, but it's